This is Kendrick Marshall. I have a special guest with me, Terrence Harris, longtime college and pro writer. He writes for the Defender Network down in Houston. And like many of us in this space, he has been covering the Texas Southern coaching search, which has taken all types of twists and turns over the last several weeks. So, Terrence, um, from your perspective and what you know right now, what do you know with exactly what's going on at Texas Southern?
Man, who knows what's going on? I'm not even sure if the people in the room know what's going on right now, to be honest with you. I mean, these guys, they called an emergency meeting on Friday to get this done after not being able to get it done and the previous week. And they still weren't able to get it done. So that means that they never got back in the room and started trying to work through this thing and work through their differences or something. Or the word I got is they thought it was a done deal. I mean, going into this emergency meeting, but obviously something transpired, something didn't go right there. And we're still sitting here waiting on TSU to name a football coach. And it's almost a new year. I mean, and so there's no reason to believe that a new coach will be named before the new year. So, I mean, this is mind boggling. And I just don't think anybody knows what's going on and understands what's happening, other than the Board of Regents seems to really be overreaching in this situation. Most times, Board of Regents usually rubber stamp, head coaches and contracts. They trust their athletic director and president to make the best decision for the university. And usually, it's just okay, cool. As long as all of you've taken all of the steps, you followed all of the procedures. It's usually good deal, but not at Texas Southern.
Yeah, I mean, we all thought it was going to be Fred McNair. Fred McNair had been long rumored for the job ever since Clarence McKinney's contract wasn't renewed after the 2023 season, and McNair had risen to become one of the top candidates for the job. Actually, we reported that he was given had agreed to agreement in principle with AD Kevin Granger, and after that, Alcorn State tried to negotiate to keep him, but eventually Fred McNair decided to move on with the thought that he was going to take the Texas Southern job, which we all thought was going to be, just dot your I's and cross your T's. He'd be the head coach. But after 3 Board of Regents meetings, that hasn't happened. Now, there are reports out there that the Texas Southern Board of Regents is going to consider other candidates other than McNair. Terrence, was Fred McNair ever close to ever being named coach, or does this pivot mean like he's out of the running altogether?
Yeah, I think that Fred McNair, I think that he's been very close. I mean, I think that the search committee went out and vetted him. Kevin Granger then, interviewed him, met with him, and I think that those two came to an agreement. And he was offered the job by Kevin Granger, who believed as the athletic director he had that right to do. So he did what he was supposed to do as an athletic director. But unfortunately, what happened is, another name popped up that I think a lot of people got excited, or some people got excited about, and is Andre Johnson, the former Houston Texans star receiver, who may actually also go into the Hall of Fame this upcoming year. We don't know yet, but he's a finalist once again. And Andre's a great guy. He's well known, very respected. He's always, been on the right side of everything. So, he's definitely a clean cut guy. If you want kids to follow, you want someone to follow, kids to follow. He's a good candidate where that's concerned. But I just don't know that he's ready for this job. I think a lot of folks kind of look at what Deion Sanders did at Jackson State. And people, they think it's as easy as just going out and getting a former NFL guy, bringing him in, and propping him up as your head coach. I mean, people don't understand what went into making Deion. And how, in a lot of ways, Deion caught lightning in a bottle. Deion's probably the best salesman ever. This guy could have been a used car salesman and sold a lot of junk cars to a lot of people, for a lot of money because he has that gift. But at the end of the day, not every that unless, like I've said, unless Ray Lewis was coming, that's just not the move you make. Not right now. And TSU needs a guy who's an experienced coach, who has a plan already in place, understands recruiting, understands all of the ins and outs and the nuances and the guidelines and rules. And at this point, Andre doesn't know any of that because he's not coached.
Right. And we mentioned on our show yesterday, talking about this, that Andre Johnson, while he's a great player, Hall of Fame type player, he doesn't have the same cachet or the same qualities that Deion Sanders has that could be able to overcome his lack of coaching experience. Maybe in Houston that works, but we're talking about connecting with a larger national audience. And I don't think from a recruiting standpoint, from a marketing standpoint, I don't think that's Andre Johnson to any degree that it is Deion Sanders.
Right. And people don't understand. Deion, he had coached before he got to Jackson State. He had been a part of developing, young players, working with his kids even, but he had, they had started a high school up in Fort Worth. So Deion had started doing coaching things. He understood coaching. But if we all remember too, Deion and his staff, they struggled during that pandemic season. It wasn't like it was a cakewalk for them because they had to figure out that, these coaches in the SWAC are for real. You gotta show up. It's not, you can't just show up and be Deion and beat these guys. What Deion went and did is he went out and got some dogs, as he said. He recruited kids that we just didn't know were considered HBCUs at this stage of how things are going. And he got some kids to come there so the talent divide was incredible. And I think he put together a pretty good staff, and used and maximized his resources. But trust me, there was a lot that went into him being able to be successful as he was. It just don't happen. And it's not just a given just because you're an NFL guy that you could do that. And I think the NFL piece definitely helped some. But I think his ability as an orator, as a guy that could get people to follow him as a leader, I think those are the things that really helped make him, a very good coach in the SWAC.
Right. I'm curious, Terrence. What does this say about Kevin Granger that this process has drawn on for so long? Does it say something about how much power and respect he has with the Texas Southern administration that his recommendation is not being considered?
I don't think it's that at all. I think that anybody that thinks that this is, people doubting him, I think you just got people who think they know better. They know more. And I think that's what this is. Keep in mind, they had just given Kevin an extension last month in November, right? He just got an extension. So clearly this board believes in him. This interim president, they believe in him. He has people behind him. So, and that's what really makes this thing so curious, is because they'd give, that's the ultimate vote of confidence in your athletic director when you extend them, and you extend them during a time when football isn't doing well. So I don't think that this doesn't, to me, this isn't about Kevin. This is about a couple, one or two Board of Regent members who feel like they know better, and they want a guy who I think that they're familiar with. They think that he should be considered, and I think that that's where this is coming from. This is not we don't think that he's he knows what he's doing kind of thing. This is we think that we should put more energy into hiring this guy. And that's awesome. One or two people who think they know better than a guy who you hired to be an expert on how to hire coaches. And it's embarrassing, man. This is more an indictment against this Board of Regents and how they move and how in the embarrassing position that they've put this university in. Because this just does not happen. Where the Board of Regents hangs up, a hire like this. Heck, at Texas A&M, they just approved last month a $76 million buyout for a coach not to coach anymore. And the Board of Regents signed off on that. They don't get involved. They say, all right, do what you do, long as you can pay for it and you got it all worked out, have at it. That's usually how this thing goes.
Yeah, I mean it's crazy. Like you mentioned, like what A&M had done with getting rid of Jimbo Fisher. I'm
Yeah,
also reminded of a situation at Notre Dame where George O'Leary was supposed to be the coach there, and then they found out he kind of like lied on his resume,
yeah,
and that hung that process up. But that's kind of like a unique circumstance, and like the board of regents at Notre Dame didn't say, "Hey, y'all can't hire George O'Leary because we think we should get somebody else." Um, but in this situation, I've never honestly never heard of a board of regents holding up a hiring of any coach at any level in college sports at all because of ego or whatever you may want to say about it. But as of now, when do you think realistically a decision is going to be made on the head coach, and who you think that head coach might be?
I don't know, and I said this to some people the other day, and I don't know this for a fact, but I just would not be surprised if the agreement at this point is, something, you know, we're not, neither one of us is going to move on. You guys want, some of you guys are good with Fred McNair, and a couple of you guys want Andre Johnson, and so you need a quorum for this. Everybody needs to agree in order for this to work. And so maybe the compromise and believe is unreal and as crazy as this could sound. I just would not be shocked if it's not either one of those guys.
Oh wow!
If the compromise is to start over and present another candidate, which I think could be a little more trickier and complicated, but maybe they bring back a guy, like Maxey, who's an alum, who I think everybody probably would be on board with, and could deal with. But once again, I don't know that, but that's my feeling now is that there's no way if it's taking you 2 weeks and you haven't been able to change people's minds and everybody's still standing their ground, maybe the only workaround in this is to go out and vet some new people and present another head coach.
But that pushes the timeline back of getting the guy in there.
They don't care. I mean, heck, if they cared about that, this would have been done 2 weeks ago. I mean, because recruiting is going on, the transfer portal was open, and guess what? You got a lot of your kids who are now looking to get up out of here, and so you need somebody to come in and rally the troops and get those guys. Keep your guys number one, but also you want to get in the portal and get a couple of these guys if you can. And right now, none of that business isn't being done. And these board of regents don't seem to care. But as I've watched, I don't think that these people always work. They work for students, but they don't work in the best interest of them. And so I don't think that the student athlete is really being considered at all, and how the effect that this is having on the program. And you got a program that's been struggling since 2000. They've only had one NCAA allowed or viable winning season since 2000, and so you come on, man. And I thought that in fairness, I thought Clarence McKinney, he had done enough, I think, to get this program going right. He had stocked it with some good talent. He had a couple, nice quarterbacks. In hindsight, you just wonder why these guys. I mean, it might have been easier just to extend them for another 2 years rather than go through this and this dysfunction. It just makes the school look bad, man. That's all I can say. It just does.
If you're Fred McNair or any other possible candidate out there who's been following this process, who's been involved in it, do you take this job if offered, or do you want this job if offered?
Okay. That's let's be honest. Let's keep it real. We black men in America, right? And this job pays $313,000 a year. And right now, Fred didn't get bought out or any of that kind of stuff. Fred's contract ended in Alcorn State. So right now, he ain't making no money. And I don't know a black man in America who would say no to that kind of money and taking a gamble on somebody else is going to pay you that next year, and you can just take a sit down for a year. So I would imagine that he's still hopeful that this could be worked out. I mean, this man left a great situation in Alcorn State, and they liked him enough that they had offered him a new contract. They wanted to keep him. I mean, but he chose to walk away from that to come to TSU. I mean, so I'm thinking that, you know, he might be looking at this school a little bit funny, and he may not be as loyal to them if somebody else comes calling. But I think if they offer him this job, he's showing up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like McNair doesn't have a contract for next year, doesn't have a job for next year. He's definitely in limbo. And I would imagine he would have thought by now he'd been in Houston somewhere trying to find a place to live while trying to recruit at the same time. And now he doesn't know what's going to happen with his future. So it's a pretty bad spot for him. Like I feel bad for him, like he's been in that position at all. So my last thing for you, Terrence, what do you think this circumstance does for the school's reputation within not just Black college football, but just in college sports in general, of not being able to come to an agreement on something that we all thought was going to be rubber stamped in naming a head coach?
It makes him a laughing stock, man. I mean, that's the worst part. I mean, it makes him a joke, because this should have been done. I mean, this, you know, you hired a coach, you let your AD go out and hire a coach under the parameters that you set, and then you don't hire this guy. This guy leaves a job, you know, a job where he was happy and they were happy with him, but I think he wanted to go prove himself somewhere else for whatever reason. And you just don't do people like this. I mean, you know, you've left this guy basically on the unemployment line, and so that's a problem in and of itself. So I think that, you know, people, you know, it just seems, you know, people probably saying this is why they haven't been able to win since 2000. You know, I think that's the belief. So it really does make the school look bad. It makes Kevin Granger look bad, even though I don't think it's this man's fault. I mean, you know, from all that I can tell, you know, looking from the outside looking in, I mean, Kevin did everything he was supposed to do, and he came back and he brought them. If he didn't bring them a home run, he brought them in the park triple. You know, so he brought them a triple that could turn into a in the park homer, and Fred McNair. So I mean, I never thought he could do that, considering the history of this program. So he delivered.
Right. I'm hoping that the folks down in Texas Southern root for their football team, hoping that the Board of Regents will deliver a football coach after the new year. But thanks, Terrence, for the time and information. I appreciate it. You can follow his work on the Defender Network and on social media. What's your handle, Terrence?
At Terrence Harris.
All right. Thanks, Terrence. We appreciate it. And thank you for watching. Follow us on hbcsports.com and all of our social media channels.
I always do, my man. And I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Thanks for joining.